Book 4 Part 2. The Shurangama Sutra, Kinh Lăng Nghiêm. The two bodhisattvas called Vaisajya Raja and Vaisajya Samudgata, who were present with 500 Brahmadevas, then rose from their seats, prostrated themselves with their heads at the feet of the Buddha and declared, "Since the time without beginning we have been skillful physicians in the world, and have tasted with our own mouths herbs, plants and all kinds of mineral and stone found in the world, saha, numbering 108,000 in all. As a result we know perfectly their tastes, whether bitter or sour, salt, insipid, sweet, acrid, etc., their natural, changing or harmonizing properties, and whether they are cooling, heating, poisonous or wholesome. We received instruction from the Tathagata and knew clearly that taste was neither existing nor non-existent, was neither body nor mind, and did not exist apart from them. Since we could discern the cause of taste, we achieved our awakening, which was sealed by the Buddha, who then named us Vaisajya Raja and Vaisajya Samudgata. We are now ranked among the sons of the Dharma King in this assembly. And because of our awakening by means of taste, we have attained the bodhisattva stage. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, to us taste is the best according to our personal experience. Bhadrapala, who was with 16 companions who were all great bodhisattvas, rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha, and declared, when the Buddha with an awe-inspiring voice, Bhisma Garhita Gosa Svara Raja, appeared in the world, I heard of the Dharma and left home. At the time of bathing, I followed the rules and entered the bathroom. Suddenly I awakened to the causal water, which cleansed neither dirt nor body. Thereby I felt at ease and realized the state of nothingness, as I had not forgotten my former practice. When I left home to follow the Buddha in my present life, I achieved the state beyond study. That Buddha named me Bhadrapala, because of my awakening to wonderful touch and my realization of the rank of a son of Buddha. As the Buddha asks now about the best means of perfection, to me touch is the best according to my personal experience. Mahakasyapa, who was present with the Bhisui, Golden Light and others, of his group, then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, in a former eon, when Chandrasuriya Pradipa Buddha appeared in this world, I had a chance of following him, and of hearing the Dharma which I practiced. After he had passed away, I revered his relics, lit lamps to perpetuate his light, and decorated his statue with pure gold powder. Since then, in every subsequent reincarnation, my body has been radiant with perfect golden light. This Bhisuni, Golden Light and the others who are with her, are my retinue. Because we developed the same mind at the same time, I looked into the 6 changing sense data which can be reduced to complete extinction only through the state of nirvana. Thus my body and mind were able to pass through hundreds and thousands of eons in a finger snap. By eradicating all dharma, things and ideas, I realized arhatship. And the world-honored one declared that I was the foremost disciplinarian. I awakened to the wonderful Dharma, thereby putting an end to the stream of transmigration. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, to me Dharma are the best according to my personal experience. Meditation on the 5 sense organs. Anuruddha then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, after I left home, I was always very fond of sleep and the Tathagata scolded me, saying that I was like an animal. After this severe reprimand, I wept bitterly and blamed myself. Because of my sadness I did not sleep for 7 successive nights and went completely blind. Then the world-honored one taught me how to take delight in the enlightening Vajra Samadhi, which enabled me to perceive not with my eyes, but my mind, the pure truth pervading the 10 directions. Very clearly perceptible, as easy to see as a mango held in my own hand. The Tathagata sealed my attainment of arhatship. As he now asks about the best means of perfection, to me seeing is, according to my personal experience, the best which is made possible by turning the organ of sight back to its source. Kasudrapanthaka then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, I did not know much about the Dharma, for one of reading and reciting the scriptures. When I first met the Buddha, I heard of the Dharma and then left home. I tried to memorize a line of his Gatha but failed for 100 days because, as soon as I could retain its first words, I forgot the last ones, and when I could remember the last words, I forgot the first ones. The Buddha took pity on my stupidity and taught me how to live in a quiet retreat and to regularize my breathing. At the time I looked exhaustively into each in and out breath and realized that its rise, stay, change and end lasted only an instant. Ks Anna. Thereby my mind became clear and unhindered until I stepped out of the stream of transmigration and finally attained arhatship. I came to stay with the Buddha who sealed my realization of the state beyond study. As he now asks about the best means of perfection, to me breathing is the best according to my personal experience in turning the breath back to the condition of nothingness. Gavampati then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, because of my verbal sin when I trifled with monks in a former eon, in every succeeding reincarnation I have been born with a mouth that always chews the cud like a cow. The Tathagata taught me the pure and clean doctrine of one mind which enabled me to eliminate the conception of mind for my entry into the state of samadhi. I looked into tasting, realized that it was neither a subjective substance nor an objective thing and leapt beyond the stream of transmigration. I thereby disengaged myself from both the inner body and mind and the outer universe and was released from the 3 worlds of existence. I was like a bird escaping from its cage, thus avoiding impurities and defilements. With my Dharma eye now pure and clean, I attained arhatship and the Tathagata personally sealed my realization of the stage beyond study. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, to me the turning of taste back to its knower is the best according to my personal experience. Pilandavatsa then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, when I first followed the Buddha to enter upon the path, very often I heard the Tathagata speak about the worldly which could not give joy and happiness. One day, I went to town to beg for food, and as I was thinking about his teaching, I stepped inadvertently on a poisonous thorn that pierced my foot and caused me to feel pain all over my body. I thought of my body which knew and felt this great pain. Although there was this feeling, I looked into my pure and clean mind which no pain could affect. I also thought, how can this one body of mine have 2 sorts of feeling? And after a short, mental concentration on this, all of a sudden, my body and mind seemed to be non-existent and 3 weeks later, I achieved the stage beyond the stream of transmigration and thereby attained arhatship. The Buddha personally sealed my realization of the stage beyond study. As he now asks about the best means of perfection, to me the pure awareness that wipes out the conception of body is the best according to my personal experience. Subhuti then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, as my mind was already free from all hindrances in former eons, I can now remember my previous reincarnations as countless as the sands in the Ganges. Even when I was a fetus in my mother's womb, I had already awakened to the condition of still voidness, which subsequently expanded to fill all the 10 directions, and which enabled me to teach living beings how to awaken to their absolute nature. Thanks to the Tathagata, I realized the absolute voidness of self-natured awareness. And with the perfection of my immaterial nature, I attained arhatship, thereby entering suddenly into the Tathagata's precious brightness, which was as immense as space and the ocean, wherein I partially achieved Buddha knowledge. The Buddha sealed my attainment of the stage beyond study. I am, therefore, regarded as the foremost disciple because of my understanding of immaterial self-nature. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, according to my personal experience, the best consists in perceiving the unreality of all phenomena, with the elimination of even this unreality, in order to reduce all things to nothingness. Meditation on the 6 consciousnesses. Sariputra then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha, and declared, "In former eons, the sight perception of my mind was already pure and clean, and in my subsequent incarnations as countless as the sands in the Ganges, I could see without hindrance through all things, either on a worldly or supramundane plane. One day, I met on the road the 2 brothers Kasyapa, who were both preaching the doctrine of causality, and after listening to them, my mind awakened to the truth and thereby became extensive and boundless. I then left home to follow the Buddha and achieved perfect sight perception, thereby acquiring fearlessness, attaining arhatship and qualifying as the Buddha's elder son, born from the Buddha's mouth and by transformation of the Dharma." As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, according to my personal experience, the best consists in realizing the most illuminating knowledge by means of the mind's radiant sight perception. Samantabhadra Bodhisattva then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha, and declared, "I was already a son of the Dharma king when formerly I was with the Tathagatas, who were countless as the sands in the Ganges." All the Buddhas in the 10 directions who teach their disciples to plant bodhisattva roots, urge them to practice Samantabhadra deeds, which are called after my name. World-honored one, I always use my mind to listen in order to distinguish the variety of views held by living beings. If in a place separated from here by a number of worlds as countless as the sands in the Ganges, a living being practices Samantabhadra deeds, I mount at once a 6-tusked elephant and reproduce myself in 108,000 apparitions to come to his aid. Even if he is unable to see me because of his great karmic obstruction, I secretly lay my hand on his head to protect and comfort him so that he can succeed. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, according to my personal experience, the best consists in hearing with the mind, which leads to non-discriminative discernment. Sundarananda then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha, and declared, "When I left home to follow the Buddha, although fully ordained, I failed to realize the state of samadhi because my mind was always unsettled. I was, therefore, unable to reach the condition beyond the stream of transmigration." The world-honored one then taught me in Kausthila to fix the mind on the tip of the nose. I started this meditation, and some 3 weeks later, I saw that the breath that went in and out of my nostrils was like smoke. Inwardly both body and mind were clear, and I looked through the external world, which became a pure emptiness like crystal everywhere. The smoke gradually disappeared, and my breath became white. As my mind opened, I achieved the state beyond the stream of transmigration. Both my in and out breaths, now bright, illumined the 10 directions so that I attained the Arhat stage. The world-honored one prophesied that I would win enlightenment. As he now asks about the best means of perfection, according to my personal experience, the best is to eliminate breath, which will then turn radiant, ensuring the attainment of the stage of perfection beyond the stream of transmigration. Purnamaitrayaniputra then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, "In former eons, my power of speech was unhindered and I preached the doctrine of misery and unreality, thereby penetrating deep into the absolute reality. I, also, expounded in the assembly the Tathagata's Dharma doors to enlightenment as uncountable as the sands in the Ganges, and thereby won fearlessness. The world-honored one knew that I had acquired the great power of speech and taught me how to perform the Buddha work by preaching. There, in his presence, I assisted him in turning the wheel of the law, and since I could give the lion's roar, I attained arhatship. He sealed my unexcelled skill in expounding the Dharma." As he now asks about the best means of perfection, according to my opinion, the best consists in employing the Dharma voice to subdue the enmity of Mara and to stop the stream of transmigration. Upali then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, "I personally accompanied the Buddha, and we climbed the city wall to flee from home. With my own eyes, I saw how he endured hardship in his practice during the first 6 years of ascetic life, subdued all demons, overcame heretics and freed himself from worldly desires and all impure efflux, asrava, from the mind. He personally taught me discipline, including the 3,000 regulations and 80,000 lines of conduct which purified all my innate and conventional subtle karmas. As my body and mind were in the nirvanic state, I attained arhatship and the Tathagata sealed my mind because of my strict observance of discipline and control of body. I am now a pillar of discipline in this assembly and am regarded as the foremost disciple." As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, in my opinion, the best consists in disciplining the body so that it can free itself from all restraints, and then in disciplining the mind so that it can be all-pervading, which results in the freedom of both body and mind. Mahamadgalyayana then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, "One day as I was begging for food in the street, I met the 3 Kasyapa brothers, Uruvilva, Gaya and Nadi, who preached the profound doctrine of causality taught by the Tathagata. Suddenly my mind opened and became all-pervading. Then the Tathagata gave me a monk's robe, and when I wore it, my hair and beard fell out. I rambled in the 10 directions and met no obstruction. I thus acquired transcendental power which proved the foremost and led to my attainment of arhatship. Not only the world-honored one, but all the Tathagatas in the 10 directions praised my supernatural powers which were perfect, pure, sovereign and fearless." As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, in my opinion the best consists of returning to stillness to allow the light of the mind to appear just as muddy water by settling becomes pure and clean as crystal. Meditation on the 7 elements. Ashwa, SMA then came forward in front of the Tathagata, joined the palms of his 2 hands, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, "I can still remember that in a very remote eon, I was filled with sensual desire. At the time a Buddha called the King of Immateriality appeared in the world. According to him, those with lustful desires increased their own hellfires. He then taught me to meditate on the bones in my body, on my 4 limbs and on my warm and cold breaths. So by turning inwardly the spiritual light for pointed concentration, my lustful mind turned into the fire of wisdom. Since then, I was called Firehead by all the Buddhas. Because of my powerful firelight samadhi, I attained arhatship. Then I took my great vow to become a demigod, Vira, so that when all Buddhas were about to attain enlightenment, I would personally help them to overcome the enmity of Mara. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, according to my opinion, the best consists in looking into the non-existent heat in my body and mind in order to remove all hindrances thereto and to put an end to the stream of transmigration, so that the great precious fight can appear and lead to the realization of supreme Bodhi. Dharanimdara Bodhisattva then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, I still remember that formerly when the Buddha of universal light appeared in the world, I was a bhiksu who used to level all obstacles, build bridges and carry sand and earth to improve the main roads, ferries, rice fields and dangerous passes, which were in bad condition or impassable to horses and carts. Thus I continued to toil for a long time, in which an uncountable number of Buddhas appeared in the world. If someone made a purchase at the marketplace and required another to carry it home for him, I did it without charge. When Vishwapu Buddha appeared in the world and famine was frequent, I became a carrier charging only 1 coin no matter whether the distance was long or short. If an ox cart could not move in a bog, I used my supernatural power to push its wheels free. One day the king invited that Buddha to a feast. As the road was bad, I leveled it for him. The Tathagata Vishwapu placed his hand on my head and said, You should level your mind ground. Then all things in the world will be on the same level. Upon hearing this, my mind opened and I perceived that the molecules of my body did not differ from those of which the world is made. These molecules were such that they did not touch one another and could not be touched even by sharp weapons. I then awakened to the patient endurance of the uncreate, and thereby attained arhatship. Then by turning my mind inwards, I realized the bodhisattva stage. And when I heard the Tathagatas expound the Buddha's universal knowledge in the profound Lotus Sutra, I was the first listener to be awakened to it and was made a leader of the assembly. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, in my opinion, the best consists in looking into the sameness of body and universe which are created by infection from falsehood, arising from the Tathagata store, until this defilement vanishes and is replaced by perfect wisdom, which then leads to the realization of supreme Bodhi. Kandraprabha Bodhisattva then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, I still remember that in the remotest of eons, countless as the sands in the Ganges, there was a Buddha, called Varuna, who appeared in the world and taught bodhisattvas to contemplate the element of water in order to enter into the state of samadhi. This method consists in looking into the body wherein all watery elements do not by nature suppress one another, using as subjects of meditation first tears and snot, and then saliva, secretion, blood, urine and excrement, and then reversing the order, thereby perceiving that this element of water in the body does not differ from that of the fragrant oceans that surround the pure lands of Buddhas, situated beyond our world. When I achieved this contemplation, I succeeded in realizing only the sameness of the element of water everywhere but failed to relinquish my view of the body. I was then a bhiksu practicing dhyana, and when my disciple peeped into the room, he saw that it was filled entirely with clear water, without anything else. As he was an ignorant boy, he picked up a broken tile, threw it into the water with a splash, gazed curiously and left. When I came out of my dhyana state, I suddenly felt pain in my heart as if I had the same trouble which Sariputra had with a wicked demon. I thought, since I have realized arhatship, I should be free from all causal ailments. Why today, all of a sudden, have I pain in my heart? Is it not a sign of my backsliding? When the boy returned, and related what he had seen and done during my meditation. I said, "When next you see water in my room, open the door, enter the water, and take away the broken tile." The boy obeyed, for when I again entered the dhyana state, he saw the same broken tile in the water. He then opened the door and removed the tile. When I came out of dhyana, my pain had vanished. Later, I met countless Buddhas before I encountered Sagara Varadara Buddhi Vikridita Bhishna Buddha, under whose instruction I succeeded in relinquishing the conception of body, thereby realizing perfect union of this body and the fragrant oceans in the 10 directions with absolute voidness, without any further differentiation. This is why I was called a son of a Buddha and was qualified to attend all bodhisattva meetings. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, in my opinion the best consists in achieving the unhindered universalizing pervasion of the element water, thereby realizing the patient endurance of the uncreate which ensures complete enlightenment. The bodhisattva of crystal light then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, "I still remember that once, in the remotest of eons countless as the sands in the Ganges, there was a Buddha called I Infinite Voice who appeared in the world to reveal to bodhisattvas the profoundly enlightened fundamental awareness which, by looking into this world and the bodily forms of all living beings, could perceive that all were created by the power of the wind arising from illusory concurrent causes." At the time, I inquired into the illusory setting up of the world, changing time, bodily motion and motionlessness, stirring of mind, in other words, all kinds of movement which were fundamentally the same and did not differ from one another. I then realized that these movements had neither whence to come nor whither to go, and that all living beings in the 10 directions, as uncountable as the dust, came from the same falsehood. Likewise, all living beings in every small world of the great chiliocosm were like mosquitoes in a trap in which they hummed aimlessly and created a mad tumult. Soon after meeting that Buddha, I realized the patient endurance of the uncreate. As my mind opened, I perceived the land of the imperturbable Buddha in the eastern region where I was admitted as a son of the Dharma King, serving all the Buddhas in the 10 directions. My body and mind gave out rays of light that illumined all the worlds without obstruction. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, in my opinion the best consists in looking into the power of the element of wind, which has nothing real on which to rely, thereby awakening to the Bodhi mind, so as to enter samadhi and then to unite with the profound one mind expounded by the Buddhas in the 10 directions. Akasagarbha Bodhisattva then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, "When the Tathagata and I were with Dipamkara Buddha and realized our boundless bodies, I held in my hands 4 big precious gems which illumined all Buddha lands in the 10 directions, as uncountable as dust, and transmuted them into the absolute void. Then my own mind appeared like a great mirror emitting 10 kinds of mysterious precious light, which penetrated the 10 directions, reaching the boundaries of space and causing all pure lands of Buddhas to enter the mirror, and then to intermingle freely with my own body which was just like unobstructive space. Then my body could enter perfectly as many samsaric countries as there are grains of dust to carry out far and wide the Buddha works of salvation, so that universality could prevail everywhere. This great transcendental power derived from my close inquiry into the 4 elements, which had nothing real to rely upon, and into false thinking that rose and fell alternately and ended in nothingness. I realized the non-duality of space, and the sameness of the Buddha, pure lands, and samsaric worlds, thereby achieving the patient endurance of the uncreate. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, according to my own experience, the best consists in the close examination into boundless space, leading to entry into samadhi and perfecting thereby the mysterious spiritual power. Maitreya Bodhisattva then rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, "I still remember that in the remotest of eons, as uncountable as the dust, there was a Buddha called Candra Surya Pradipa who appeared in the world, to convert others. I followed him to leave home. However, I, still, cherished worldly fame, and liked to mix with noble clans. Then the Tathagata taught me how to practice dhyana meditation on the mind's consciousness in order to realize the state of samadhi. Ever since the following eons, I have used this samadhi to serve Buddhas as many as the sands in the Ganges, thereby eliminating completely my previous mindset on worldly fame. When Dipamkara Buddha appeared in the world, under his instruction, I realized the consciousness perfecting supreme samadhi of the mind, which enabled me to perceive that all Tathagata stores and samsaric worlds, purity and impurity and existence and non-existence were but appearances caused by my own mindi's transformations. World-honored one, because of my clear understanding that only the mind's consciousness was the cause of all externals, I perceived an unlimited number of Tathagatas coming out of the nature of consciousness, hence, the Buddha prophecy that I shall be his successor. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, my opinion is that the best consists of close examination into all appearances which are created by consciousness only, in order to perfect the conscious mind, thereby realizing complete reality and ensuring non-reliance on externals and the breaking of all attachments caused by discrimination, thereby achieving the patient endurance of the uncreate. Mahasthama, a son of the Dharma king, who was the head of a group of 52 bodhisattvas, rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and declared, I still remember that in the remotest of eons, countless as the sands in the Ganges, there was a Buddha called Amitabha who was succeeded by 11 other Tathagatas in that kalpa. The last one was called the Buddha whose light surpassed that of the sun and moon. He taught me how to realize the state of samadhi by thinking exclusively of Amitabha, Buddha. By way of illustration, if a man concentrates his mind on someone else while the latter always forgets him, both may meet and see, but without recognizing each other. However, if both are keen on thinking of each other, their keenness will grow from one incarnation to another until they become inseparable like a body and its shadow. The Tathagatas in the 10 directions have compassion for all living beings and always think of them, like a mother who never ceases thinking of her son. If the son runs away, her thoughts of him will not help, but if he also thinks of her with the same keenness, they will not be separated in spite of the passing of transmigration. If a living being remembers and thinks of the Buddha, he is bound to behold him in his present or future incarnation. He will not be far from the Buddha and thus without the aid of any other expedient. His mind will be open. He is like a man whose body, perfumed by incense, gives out fragrance, hence his name, one glorified by Buddha, fragrance and light. From my fundamental cause ground and with all my thoughts concentrated on the Buddha, I achieved the patient endurance of the uncreate. This is why I help all living beings of this world to control their thoughts by repeating the Buddha name so that they can reach the Pure Land. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, I hold that nothing can surpass the perfect control of the 6 senses with continuous pure thoughts in order to realize samadhi. Meditation on the organ of hearing. Thereupon Avalokitesvara Bodhisattva rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha, and declared, "I still remember that long before numbers of eons countless as the sand grains in the Ganges, a Buddha called Avalokitesvara appeared in the world. When I was with him, I developed the Bodhi mind and, for my entry into Samadhi, I was instructed by him to practice meditation by means of the organ of hearing. At first by directing the organ of hearing into the stream of meditation, this organ was detached from its object. And by wiping out the concept of both sound and stream entry, both disturbance and stillness became clearly non-existent. Thus advancing step by step, both hearing and its object ceased completely, but I did not stop where they ended. When the awareness of this state, and this state itself were realized as non-existent, both subject and object merged into the void, the awareness of which became all-embracing. With further elimination of the void and its object, both creation and annihilation vanished, giving way to the state of nirvana, which then manifested. Suddenly I leapt over both the mundane and supramundane, thereby realizing an all-embracing brightness pervading the 10 directions, and acquired 2 unsurpassed merits. The first was in accord with the fundamental profound enlightened mind of all the Buddhas high up in the 10 directions, and possessed the same merciful power as the Tathagata. The second was in sympathy with all living beings in the 6 realms of existence here below in the 10 directions, and shared with them the same plea for compassion. World-honored one, as I followed and made offerings to the Tathagata Avalokitesvara, he taught me to use my illusory hearing and sublimate it to realize the diamond, Vajra, Samadhi, which gave me the same power of mercy of all Buddhas and enabled me to transform myself into 32 bodily forms, for the purpose of visiting all countries in samsara, to convert and liberate living beings. World-honored one, if there are bodhisattvas who practice samadhi to attain the transcendental, mean, when there is a chance for them to realize absolute wisdom, I will appear as a Buddha to teach them the Dharma to liberate them. If there are solitary students seeking only self-enlightenment, who practice the stillness of nirvana, when there is a chance for them to realize it, I will appear as a teacher of self-enlightenment to teach them the Dharma to liberate them. If there are students of the Four Noble Truths who, after realizing the unreality of suffering and its accumulation, tread the path leading to the extinction of passions, when there is a chance for them to achieve this, I will appear as a hearer, Sravaka, to teach them the Dharma to liberate them. If there are living beings who realize the harmfulness of desire in the mind and abstain from all worldly cravings to achieve purity of body, I will appear as Brahma to teach them the Dharma to liberate them. If there are living beings who desire to be lords of devas to rule over the realms of the gods, I will appear as Sakra to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to roam freely in the 10 directions, I will appear as Isvaradeva to teach them the Dharma to that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to fly freely in empty space, I will appear as Mahesvara to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to be lords of ghosts and spirits to protect their countries, I will appear as a great warrior to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to rule over the world to protect all its inhabitants, I will appear as a Deva king of the 4 quarters to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to be reborn in the palace of Devas to command ghosts and spirits, I will appear as a son of the Deva king of the 4 quarters to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to be kings of human beings, I will appear as a king to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to be heads of clans to enjoy the respects of their clansmen, I will appear as a respectable elder Gripati to teach them the Dharma, so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who enjoy discussing well-known sayings and practice pure living, I will appear as a respectable scholar to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to govern cities and towns, I will appear as a magistrate to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who delight in practicing mysticism for self-welfare, I will appear as a Brahmin to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are men who are keen on study and learning, and leave home to practice the rules of morality and discipline, I will appear as a bhiksu to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are women who are eager to study and learn and leave home to observe the precepts, I will appear as a bhikshuni to teach them the Dharma, so that they reach their goals. If there are men who observe the 5 precepts, I will appear as a upasaka to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are women who observe the 5 precepts, I will appear as a upasaka to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are women who are keen to fulfill their home duties, thereby setting a good example to other families in the whole country, I will appear as a queen, a princess or a noble lady to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are young men who are chaste, I will appear as a celibate youth to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are young women who are keen to avoid carnality in order to preserve their virginity, I will appear as a maiden to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are gods who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a diva to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are dragons, nagas, who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a naga to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are yaksas who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a yaksa to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are Gandharvas who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a Gandharva to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are asuras who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as an asura to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are Garudas who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a Garuda to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are Kannaras who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a Kannara to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are Mahoragas who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as a Mahoraga to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are living beings who wish to be reborn as human beings, I will appear in human form to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. If there are non-human beings with or without forms and either thoughtful or thoughtless, who wish to be freed from bondage in their realms, I will appear as one of them to teach them the Dharma so that they reach their goals. These are my 32 transformation bodies in response to the needs of all countries in samsara, achieved by means of the uncreated sovereign power of samadhi realized in my practice of sublimating the faculty of hearing. World-honored one, I also use this uncreated sovereign power of Diamond Samadhi, derived from sublimating hearing, to share with all living beings in the 6 realms in the 10 directions the same plea for compassion, and to bestow upon them 14 kinds of fearlessness which emanate from my body and mind. 1. Since I myself do not meditate on sound but on the meditator, I cause all suffering beings to look into the sound of their voices in order to obtain liberation. 2. By returning discriminative intellect to its absolute source, I cause them to avoid being burned when they find themselves in a great fire. 3. By returning hearing to its source, I cause them to avoid drowning when they are adrift on the sea. 4. By stopping wrong thinking and thereby cleansing their minds of harmfulness, I lead them to safety when they wander in the realm of evil ghosts. 5. By sublimating their wrong hearing to restore its absolute condition, thereby purifying all 6 organs and perfecting their functions, I cause them, when in danger, to be immune from sharp weapons, which become blunt and useless like water that cannot be cut and daylight that cannot be blown away, because their underlying nature does not change. 6. By perfecting the sublimation of their hearing, its bright light pervades the whole Dharma realm to destroy the darkness of ignorance, thereby dazzling evil beings such as Yaksa, Raksa, Kumbhanda, Pisachi, Putana, etc., who cannot see them when meeting them. 7. When hearing is reversed so that sound vanishes completely, all illusory objects of sense disappear so that practicers are freed from fetters, which can no longer restrain them. 8. The elimination of sound to perfect hearing results in universal compassion so that they can pass through regions infested with robbers and bandits who cannot plunder them. 9. The sublimation of hearing disengages them from the objects of sense and makes them immune from attractive forms, thereby enabling lustful beings to get rid of desires and cravings. 10. The sublimation of sound eliminates all sense data and results in the perfect mingling of each organ with its objects, and the total eradication of subject and object, thereby enabling all vindictive beings to bury anger and hate. 11. After the elimination of sense data and the return to the bright reality, both inner body and mind and outer phenomena become crystal clear and free from all hindrances, so that dull and ignorant unbelievers, I see Chantika, can get rid of the darkness of ignorance. 12. When their bodies are in harmony with the nature of hearing, they can, from their immutable state of enlightenment, Bodhimandala, re-enter the world, to liberate others, without harming the worldly, and can go anywhere to make offerings to Buddhas countless as dust, serving every Tathagata in the capacity of a son of the king of the law and having the power to give male heirs with blessed virtues and wisdom to childless people who want boys. 13. The perfecting of the 6 organs unifies their divided functions so that they become all-embracing, thus revealing the great mirror, wisdom, and immaterial Tathagata womb compatible with all Dharma doors taught by Buddhas as uncountable as dust. They can bestow upright, blessed, gracious, and respect-inspiring girls on childless parents who want daughters. 14. In this great chiliocosm which contains 100 lakhs of suns and moons, there are now bodhisattvas countless as sand grains in 62 Ganges rivers. They practice the Dharma to set a good example to all living beings by befriending, teaching and converting them. In their wisdom their expedient methods differ. Because I used one penetrating organ which led to my realization through the faculty of hearing, my body and mind embrace the whole Dharma realm in which I teach all living beings to concentrate their minds on calling my name. The merits that follow are the same as those derived from calling on the names of all these bodhisattvas. World-honored one, my single name does not differ from those uncountable ones, because of my practice and training which led to my true enlightenment. These are the 14 fearless powers, which I bestow upon living beings. World-honored one, because of my perfect understanding which led to my attainment of the supreme path. I acquired 4 inconceivable absolute virtues. 1. When I first realized the hearing mind which was most profound, the essence of mind, i.e. the Tathagata store, disengaged itself from hearing, and could no longer be divided by seeing, hearing, feeling and knowing, and so became one pure and clean all-pervading precious Bodhi. This is why I can take on different wonderful forms and master a countless number of esoteric mantras. I can appear with 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11 and up to 108, 1000, 10,000, and 84,000 sovereign, chakra, faces, with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24 and up to 108, 1000, 10,000, and 84,000 arms making various gestures, mudras, and with 2, 3, 4, 9 up to 108, 1000, 10,000 and 84,000 clean and pure precious eyes, either merciful or wrathful, and in a state either of still imperturbability, dhyana samadhi, or of absolute wisdom. Prajna, to save and protect living beings so that they can enjoy great freedom. 2. Because of my meditation by means of the organ of hearing, which resulted in my disengagement from the 6 sense data, like a sound going through a wall without hindrance, I can, with each appearance, and with the aid of each mantra, bestow fearlessness upon suffering beings in countries as countless as dust in the 10 directions, in which I am regarded as the giver of dauntlessness. 3. Because of the perfection which I won by sublimating the appropriate organ, living beings in countries which I visit lay down their desires and attachments and offer their bodies and treasures to implore my compassion. 4. As one have realized the Buddha mind and attained ultimate reality, I can make offerings to the Tathagatas in 10 directions and satisfy living beings in the 6 worlds, who seek virtuous wives, good sons, samadhi, long life and even parinirvana. As the Buddha now asks about the best means of perfection, my method which consists in regulating the organ of hearing so as to quiet the mind, for its entry into the stream of meditation leading to the state of samadhi and attainment of enlightenment is the best. World-honored one, that Buddha praised my excellent method of perfection and gave me, in the presence of the assembly, the name of Avalokitesvara. Because of my all-embracing, absolute function of hearing, my name is known everywhere. Thereupon, the Buddha, from his lion seat, sent out from the 5 members of his body, rays of light which reached and shone on the heads of the Tathagatas and bodhisattvas countless as dust in the 10 directions. In return countless Tathagatas sent back rays of light which shone on the heads of the Buddha, great bodhisattvas and arhats in the assembly, causing the groves and streams to intone the Dharma and uncountable rays of light to interlace in precious nets. A spectacle never seen before. As a result, all the bodhisattvas and arhats in the assembly realized the diamond samadhi. At the same time showers of green, yellow, red and white lotus blossoms turned the whole of space into a 7-colored expanse, and caused mountains, rivers and the great earth to disappear and all the countless other realms to merge into one universe filled with songs and recitations. Thereupon, the Tathagata said to Manjusri, son of the Dharma king, these 25 bodhisattvas and arhats who no longer need to study and learn, have related the expedient methods used by them at the start of their practice for their realization of Bodhi. In reality each of these methods does not differ from, and is neither superior nor inferior to the others. Tell me which one of them is suitable to Ananda so that he can awaken to it and which one is easy of achievement. For the benefit of living beings who, after my nirvana, wish to practice with the bodhisattva vehicle in their search for supreme bodhi. Manjushri's Gatha teaching the appropriate method for human beings. As commanded, Manjushri rose from his seat, prostrated himself with his head at the feet of the Buddha and reverently chanted the following Gatha. Perfect and clear by nature is the Bodhi ocean. Pure and faultless Bodhi is in essence wonderful. Its fundamental brightness shone, so by chance creating an object which then obscured its radiant nature. Thus in delusion there appeared one-sided emptiness, in which an imaginary world arbitrarily was built. Steadying itself, the thinking process made the continents, while the illusory knower became a living being. The voidness so created within Bodhi is but a bubble in the ocean. Worldly realms, countless as the dust, arose in this relative emptiness. When the bubble bursts, the void's unreality is exposed. How much more so is that of the three realms? Though all return to one nature at the source, there are many expedient methods for the purpose. Though holy nature pervades all, direct or inverse methods are expedients. Hence newly initiated minds of different aptitudes are quick or slow to enter samadhi. Form which from thought crystallizes is too difficult to look through. How can perfection be achieved? Through this impenetrable form? Sound, voice, word and speech are each confined to specific definition, which by itself is not all-embracing. How can they help perfection to achieve? Smell, perceived when in contact with the nose, without that contact is non-existent. How can that which is not always present be a means to achieve perfection? Taste exists not of itself, but is perceived when flavors present. Since sense of taste is ever varied, how can it to perfection lead? Touch exists when there is an object touched. Without an object touch is not. Since contact and its absence are not constant, how can touch help to achieve perfection? Dharma is inner defilement called. Reliance thereon implies an object. Since subject and object are not all-embracing, how can Dharma lead one to perfection? The organ of sight, although perceiving clearly, sees things in front but cannot see behind. How can partial sight of the four quarters help one to achieve perfection? The inward and the outward breath have no link uniting them. How can they, thus unconnected, be used to achieve perfection? The tongue is useless touching nothing. When flavor is present, there is taste, which vanishes when flavor's absent. How can this help to achieve perfection? Body must be conditioned to the object touched. Both cannot be used for all-embracing meditation, which is beyond both subject and object with their limits. How can this serve to achieve perfection? The tumult of thinking with the mind disturbs the serenity of right perception. Since stirring thoughts are most hard to eradicate, how can intellect serve to achieve perfection? Union of consciousness with eye and sight has three components that are not settled. How can that which is devoid of substance be used as a means to win perfection? The hearing mind which reaches into space needs a great cause for its development, but untrained men cannot realize it. How can this help to achieve perfection? Meditation on the nose is only an expedient means to control the mind by fixing it for the moment, but wrong dwelling can create an illusory abode. How can this be used to achieve perfection? Preaching the Dharma plays upon voice and words, but awakening occurred during practice long ago. Words and speeches never going beyond the worldly stream. How can this be a means to achieve perfection? Observance of rules of discipline controls the body but never that which is beyond it. Since control of body is not all-embracing, How can this serve to achieve perfection? Transcendental powers come from a former cause. How can they derive from discriminating consciousness? Since thinking from externals cannot stray, how can it serve to achieve perfection? If the element of earth be used for contemplation, it is solid and cannot be penetrated. Belonging to the worldly, it lacks spirituality. How can it be used to achieve perfection? If meditation be on the element of water, the thoughts that then arise have no reality. Beyond feeling and seeing is the absolute. How then can water help to achieve perfection? If for meditation the element of fire be used, dislike of desire is not complete renunciation. 'Tis no expedient for newly initiated minds. How then can fire become a means to achieve perfection? If meditation is on the element of wind, motion and stillness are a false duality, from which supreme bodhi cannot develop. How can wine serve to achieve perfection? If the element of space be used for meditation, its dimness and dullness cannot be enlightenment. Since whatever is unenlightened differs much from bodhi, how can the element of space help to achieve perfection? If on the element of consciousness you meditate, it changes and is not permanent, the mind fixed on it being false. How can that element then help you to achieve perfection? Phenomena are all impermanent. Thinking originally comes and goes. Since cause will ever differ from effect, how can the element of perception achieve perfection? I now submit to the world-honored one, that all Buddhas in this world appear to teach the most appropriate method, which consists in using pervasive sound. The state of samadhi can be realized by means of hearing. Thus was Avalokitesvara freed from suffering. Hail to the regarder of sound, who, during eons countless as Ganges sand, entered as many Buddha lands to win the power and comfort of his independence, and bestow fearlessness upon all living beings. O you who have achieved the sound profound, the seer of sound the purifier, who, unfailing as the sound of ocean tides, saves all beings in the world, make them secure, ensure their liberation and attainment of eternity. Reverently I declare to the Tathagata what Avalokitesvara said. When one dwells in quietude, rolls of drums from 10 directions simultaneously are heard. So hearing is complete and perfect. The eyes cannot pierce a screen, but neither can mouth nor nose. Body only feels when it is touched. Mind's thoughts are confused and unconnected, but voice, whether near or far, at all times can be heard. The 5 other organs are not perfect, but hearing really is pervasive. The presence or absence of sound and voice is registered by ear as is or is not. Absence of sound means nothing heard, not hearing devoid of nature. Absence of sound is not the end of hearing, and sound when present is not its beginning. The faculty of hearing, beyond creation and annihilation, truly is permanent, even when isolated thoughts in a dream arise. Though the thinking process stops, hearing does not end, for the faculty of hearing is beyond all thought, beyond both mind and body. In this Saha world, teaching is by voice. Living beings who cognize not hearing's nature follow sound to continue transmigrating. Though Ananda memorized all that he had heard, he could not avoid perverted thoughts. This is to fall into samsara by clinging to sound, whilst reality is one against the worldly stream. Listen, Ananda, listen closely. In the name of Buddha I proclaim the Vajra King of Enlightenment, the inconceivable understanding that illusions are unreal, the true samadhi that begets all Buddhas. You may hear of esoteric methods from Buddhas countless as the dust, but if you cannot eradicate desire, to hear much causes errors. To hear your very self, Why not turn backward? That faculty employed to hear Buddha's words. Hearing is not of itself, but owes its name to sound. Freed from sound by turning hearing backwards. What do you call that which is disengaged? When one sense organ has to its source returned, all the 6 senses thereby are liberated. Seeing and hearing are like optical illusions. Just as all 3 worlds resemble flowers in the sky, with hearing disengaged, the illusory organ vanishes. With objects eradicated, perfectly pure is Bodhi in utter purity. The bright light pervades all, with its shining stillness enfolding the great void. All worldly things, when closely looked at, are but illusions seen in dreams. Dreamlike was the Matangi maiden. How could she keep your body with her? Like a clever showman, presenting a puppet play, though movements are many, there is but one controller. When that control is stopped, figures show no nature. Likewise are the 6 organs, derived from one alaya, which divides into 6 unions. If one of these returns to source, all 6 functions are ended. With all infection ended, Bodhi is then realized. Any defiling remnant requires further study, whereas full enlightenment is the Tathagata. Ananda and all you who listen here, should inward turn your faculty of hearing to hear your own nature, which alone achieves supreme Bodhi. That is how enlightenment is won. Buddhas as many as the Ganges sand, entered this one gateway to nirvana. All past Tathagatas have achieved this method. All bodhisattvas now enter this perfection. All who practice in the future on this dharma should rely. Avalokiteshvara did not practice it alone, because through it I also passed. The enlightened and world-honored one has asked about the best expedients for those in the dharma-ending age who wish from samsara to escape in their search for nirvana's heart. It is best to contemplate on worldly sound. All other methods are expedients, used by Buddha in particular cases, to keep disciples from occasional trouble. They are not good for indiscriminate practice by men of different types. I salute the Tathagata store, which is beyond the worldly stream. Blessed be coming generations, so that they have abiding faith in this easy expedient. 'Tis good for teaching Ananda, and those of the Dharma-ending age, who should use the hearing organ, which surpasses all others, and with the true mind accords. After hearing this, Ananda and the assembly felt their bodies and minds to be in tune with the profound teaching. To them the Buddha's Bodhi and Parinirvana were like the way home, which a traveler should know well before returning from a long journey abroad. Others present, such as the 8 classes of non-human beings, students of Hinayana and Bodhisattvas who had just developed the Bodhi mind, and whose number was countless as the sand in 10 Ganges rivers, awakened to their fundamental minds, avoided defilement and won the pure Dharma eye. After hearing the Gatha, Bhissuni self-nature realized arhatship, and an uncountable number of living beings developed the unsurpassed Samyak Sambodhi mind.